Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Anderson. I am a freelance artist and teacher hoping to inspire creativity. If you would like more videos like these, please take a second to like and subscribe down below. It really helps in the algorithm of YouTube to help get my videos seen to more people. If you want to receive notifications of when I go live, please make sure to hit the bell and choose all notifications. If you have any questions during or after the class, make sure to pop a comment down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. If interested in learning more about my classes, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And feel free to check me out on Patreon, where I teach exclusive classes to those who support me. In Patreon, I also give traceables for all of my live classes, including this one. Lastly, if you would like to share your work after class with me and others who painted along with us, please head over to Facebook, as I have an artist community where you can share your finished painting with us. I'll leave links for all of that in the description box below. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another YouTube tutorial. I'm excited to paint today. So grab your brushes, grab your paints, and let's get painting. So today we are going to be doing this lovely bench, and it just looks so relaxing. I'm excited to paint it. I have been doing a lot of water recently, and I've just kind of fallen in love with just the whole essence of water and waves and reflections. So I'm happy to be teaching this one. As usual, I do have a traceable for this class. If you are freaking out on whether or not you're going to be able to do the bench justice or anything like that, please go over and print out my traceable. It's only $5 for the entire month. You'll get access to not only this class, but every other class that I've ever done on YouTube. So it's $5 for all of that. You'll have access through the rest of the month. And then if you want to stay for next month's classes, you'll also get those as well. And the payment turns over on the 1st of the month, so just make sure you decide before then, okay? So yeah, so that's in there at the Lilac $5 tier. And not only does it support me, but it also helps keep these classes free. It's a way to support me as well as kind of get perks within Patreon. There's also a lot of other things that you have access to at the Lilac tier, including quick tip tutorials, which I don't know if a lot of you know. I have, I think, 25 quick tip 2 to 3 minute videos on various subjects that are really helpful for beginners. So if you are a beginner and you don't really know where to start and it's just a lot of information, feel free to grab the traceable and then go in there and search under quick tips, and you'll be able to get a lot of information with those videos that might be really helpful for you. So yeah, that's just kind of a little tip for that. I won't be using one today. I just feel like, I don't know, I'm feeling adventurous. I'm just gonna kind of go. I also wanted to change a little bit of the spacing of it all. I wanted to put my bench a little bit further down, and I wanted to change the ground to be less like cement, gravel, and dirt, and more of just like a kind of a dirt hill a little bit. So I'm not doing the bottom. I'm not doing the bottom like the reference completely. I'm still gonna keep the colors and a lot of the essence of it, but I am kind of changing where everything is. I didn't feel like, doing that in Photoshop because then it would kind of ruin the essence of the photo. But just so you get an idea of where I'm going with it, I'm gonna put mine a little bit further down, and then I'm gonna keep the tree where it is, and I'm gonna pull down the edge of my my land just a little bit, and I have a little bit more water. If you are using the traceable, you can just put the traceable on where you want the bench, draw the bench, and then you can take it off and move it up to draw in the base trunk of your tree, and that would be a way to still use the traceable. Because I did use the traceable with the original, just in case you wanted to do it like that. But if you would like to do it the way that I'm doing it and move the bench a little bit further down, then feel free to paint it in 2 different sections, or you can cut it and then paste it that way, okay? So those are the notes for the traceable and the reference. I am using an 11 by 14 stretched canvas today. So I have top, bottom, and sides. So make sure to wrap the canvas, which is just another way of saying I'm going to paint the sides. I like to paint the sides so that I can just put it right on the wall and not feel like it's unfinished. If you plan to paint them just black, if you're one of those artists who just like to paint it a solid color, then don't worry about that. Or if you plan to frame it and then you're not going to see the sides anyways, then you don't have to worry about that either. I like to do it because I never know what my people, if people buy my art, I don't know whether or not they want to just stick it on the wall or frame it. So I always paint the sides just in case. It gives them options to do either. So that is the canvas that I'm using. For the brushes today, we're going to be using a couple of different brushes. So I have my regular set of brushes that I use from just all sorts of different kits. I have my favorites, doesn't everybody? I have my two filbert brushes. One is a large, about probably a 3/4 inch, and the other one is a smaller one, maybe a 1/2 inch. These are my filberts. I use this one for the background, so if you have a different favorite brush that you like using for the background and large spaces, feel free to use whatever you would like. And then I also have 3 different round brushes. One is a texture brush, so it's very worn. I use it for clouds and other textures. It's great for adding shadows and things like that for dry brushing. And then I have 2 other round brushes. One's a little bit more pointed, one's a little bit more round. I use them for different things. I've noticed that the one that's a little bit pointed is getting a little bit worn because I think I mistake it for my texture brush sometimes. And so I'll end up, roughing with it and then realizing that I have the wrong brush. So I might need to replace that one soon, but just so you know what I'm using. And then I have a couple liner brushes. I have a couple different sizes because I'm not totally sure what I will want to use for the details, how detailed we're going to get. It just kind of depends on timing and how much time you would like to spend on your painting. And then the other thing that you might need is going to be your leaf or tree brushes. I have a few favorites that I use and I'll show them to you right here. So these are the 3 brushes that I enjoy using. I have a couple different fan brushes that I have. These are Zem, Z-E-M. All of the tools that I use in my classes are on my Amazon shop. So if you ever want to buy anything that specifically I use in my classes to replicate anything that I do, and maybe you don't have a brush like it, it's all in my Amazon shop. I have my teacher favorites, which is like literal things that I use, and then I have other recommended supplies that are maybe like the things I use. But I have this kit, it's just from Amazon. These are hog bristle brushes, which means that these are stiff brushes. These are not the typical nylon ones that come in your other brush kits. These ones will get they're great for watercolor, I will say that, but when I'm using them for trees or anything like that, they're just unusable because the heavy paint and water will clump together and it doesn't fan out like a fan brush should. It's in the name, but those light thin bristles don't do the job. So I have some stiff hog bristle brushes that I like to use for trees. And we will be using some in this class. Now, that being said, if you're here live during the premiere and you do not have a fan brush, that is okay. There are other brushes that you can use to replicate this sort of thing. I have an old 1-inch wash brush. This is a Princeton snap brush. It does not have to be this size or this brand, but that's what I have. I've had this for years, and I use it often when I'm trying to get like a stipple texture, because look at how let's see if you can look how frayed it is. You see how frayed it is? I tend to use this with little to no water because it helps the the bristles fan out. If I use too much water, it will clump together just like the other nylon brushes, and it doesn't work as well, so I'll often have to dry it out if I get too much water on it. But this works great. So if you have an old brush, maybe even an old brush that has like dried paint or something like that, that makes it a little bit stiffer, go for it. You can also use maybe a toothbrush. That might be useful too, because those have really stiff bristles. And then the other one that I like to use, maybe not for this type of tree, but other trees like, I call them Bob Ross trees, the pine trees and things like that, I will use this brush. Now you might be thinking, what's the difference between these two brushes? Well, one obviously is the size, but for some reason, I think because this one is thicker, it just presents itself differently on the canvas. This one creates much better like textures when it comes to trees than this one does. So I don't know. So even if you're using what seems to be the same brush as me, if you're not getting the same texture or the same technique result that you feel like you should, try different brushes. Try the different brushes that you have and see which one works for the result that you're trying to achieve, because every brush is different and every brush changes over time. For instance, when I first started using this brush, it did not act like that because it was a new brush and the bristles were not frayed like this. But as it's gotten older, it's become more frayed, and I've started changing what I use it for. So keep your old brushes, don't get rid of them, because you never know when you're gonna need a brush to do what that brush does. Not to say become a hoarder. You know, us artists, we're not hoarders, we're gonna use them, right? Obviously if a brush is completely ruined, it's okay to get rid of it. But that being said, like some brushes you can use for certain things that your newer brushes just can't achieve. Okay, so those are the extent of my brushes. I think that's it. Let me look at the reference. I'm pretty sure that's all we're gonna need. That's a pretty wide variety of brushes. If you don't have all these brushes, that's okay. Just use something that's closest, and I'm sure it'll come out great. If you are not a part of my Facebook community, please go over to my Facebook and search Samantha Anderson Artist. Two things will pop up. One, it's my Facebook, where I post literally 95% of everything, every information, event, upcoming classes, Patreon classes, polls, contests, whatever it is, it gets posted on Facebook. That is like the main hub of all my information. So if you're not following me on Facebook, please go over there and follow me. I would really love you have joined the family. And then something else that might pop up is my group, Samantha Anderson's Artist Community. That is probably a few things. You'll get a couple overlap things of like events and upcoming classes as a reminder. But in there, if you need the extra reminder, I do at everyone so that you can get reminded of the classes that are in the upcoming week, so you can put it on your calendar. So I know that that's super helpful for some people. And then that's also where you can share your artwork after the class. So if you are new to the channel and you have not explored the channel yet, go on to the Facebook community in the albums, and I literally have every single picture of my classes that that is available on the internet. So whether that's Patreon or YouTube, it's in there, and it'll say everything is categorized. It has the date of when it was done. It has what we painted, when we painted it, where I painted it, so whether or not it's YouTube or Patreon, and then it has a link so that you can click that link and go to wherever it was posted, and you can paint it. So that is a really helpful tool if you're new to the channel, or maybe you didn't know about it. That is there for you guys. Okay, I'm gonna put all of these off to the side, and let's go ahead and get out our paint colors. So I'm looking here, And you're obviously going to need, maybe it's not obvious, you're gonna need your black, your white, and your brown. Those are like my staple colors that I have. I always have those. One lightens, one darkens, actually two darken. And they both, all three of those colors are pretty much staples in all of my paintings. So I have my white, black, and then my raw umber specifically. That's what brown it is. And then for our colors, essentially you're gonna have the primary colors, but just in different shades. So I'm gonna have Phthalo Blue. Okay, so I have Phthalo Blue, and I'm gonna have a yellow. I'm also going to have a bright green. Now you might be wondering why I have such a bright green. It's because so I can make whatever color I want. There are some bright greens in here, so it's gonna be really nice to start off with that really bright color, because I can always darken it with my brown, my black, my dark blue. I can change the color, but starting off with that bright color is really, really nice, because I can make that green whatever color I want versus starting off with a darker, maybe a hooker's green. What is it? Hooker's green? My mind is blanking right now. I don't actually have the color because I always use this one. But yeah, there's plenty of other darker greens that you could use, but then you'd have to lighten it up. And when you lighten it up, sometimes it tends to lose its brightness in color. So I really enjoy using this bright color and being able to make it whatever green I want. These are all from Hippie Crafter acrylics. They are professional full body acrylics, so don't be confused by the bottles. These are not craft acrylics. So I try to always remember have that disclaimer, because a lot of the bottles that you see in the craft stores are soft body acrylics, and they're a lot thinner. So if you're buying those thinking that they're not. Please go and look up Hippie Crafter, because they have given me numerous free paints to do in their classes. I love them. They're super nice. And their paints, I've been using their paints for years, and they're really great. Great company to work with. So, yeah, shout out to them. Those are pretty much all the colors I'm going to need, with the exception of maybe if you have like a light blue, like I have, I have a lake blue that I might use. Or like an aqua green or something. So if you have one of these bright color blues, feel free to grab those. If you have other colors that you want to use, please don't be restricted to what I specifically am using. We all have different eyes for different colors, and if you want to create a different version of this painting, feel free to do that. I will be teaching for these colors specifically, and I do like to teach I like to teach in a way that really mimics what we're seeing, because sometimes it's really hard to teach and it's really hard to paint realism, because you might think color is what it is, but then it's like, oh, you put it on the canvas, it's like completely different and colors don't match up. So I do like teaching how to effectively tint your colors to match what you're trying to paint. But that being said, if you want to paint different colors, feel free to do that. You do not have to make it exactly like the reference, okay? Okay, I believe that is it. You have your water, paper towel, palette, and again, all of these supplies are on my Amazon shop if you would like to go over there and not only support the channel, because I do get a little bit of that, but mostly just to figure out what I'm using, so you can get it for yourself, okay? Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to message them, comment them down below, and let's go ahead and get painting. I have some other classes that I'm going to share in a little bit after we get our main, essentially our traceable on here and figure out where everything's going. Now, if you have the traceable, if you haven't put it on yet, now is a great time to do that. If you have put it on, just chill for a little bit. Just relax, and we're gonna go ahead and do this. For everyone who has not put on a traceable, we're gonna go ahead and figure out where everything is, okay? And actually, I have a great way of doing this. We're actually going to do a wash. Washing is one of my favorite things to do. And we're going to do a wash, and in that wash, we're going to figure out where everything is, okay? Are you ready? If you've never done a wash, it's so much fun, and it's so freeing because everything's so loose, and it's very fun to do, and it's very relaxing. So let's get out our blues, okay? I'm going to get out my blue, and since most of this painting is blue anyways, it is the perfect opportunity to do a blue wash. So if you're wondering what a wash is, if you've never done it before, a wash is just a watered down version of your paint, and that goes over your canvas or over certain parts of your canvas to kind of tint it. It's just a really watered down paint. Oh, and something else I do have a palette knife. I use it in every class, not to paint necessarily, but to mix my colors. This helps keep your water clean, your brush is nice, and it keeps you from wasting paint from constantly going in and out of the water, trying to mix all the colors. So I have two different blues. I have my lake blue, which is just like a lighter blue, and then I have a phthalo blue, and then I'm going to grab my white. Lovely sound. And I'm going to make a fairly light color. A little bit of this, a little bit of this. And it is going to lighten up a bit because we are going to have a lot of water in it. And I'm actually going to get out my aqua. And if you don't have an aqua, you can get out any other green. Any light green you can also get out. Because I'm just going to tint it a little bit. And if you're uncomfortable with just starting on a blank canvas like this, I totally understand. And if you want to kind of draw where everything is, that's totally fine. But I want to challenge you in this. Just trust the process. It's really fun, and I feel like it's almost you can't mess up with this section because it's just so freeing and easy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off so that paint doesn't dry on my palette knife. And then I'm going to grab my bigger brush, the one that I like to use for backgrounds. It's my filbert. I'm going to get it wet. I'm not going to dab it on my paper towel because I want that water to mix in. And I'm going to just start applying this to the canvas. And there's a couple different reasons why I like doing washes. One, it gets that white off of the canvas. It just covers it up. And so often, it's really hard to cover up the white on a canvas when we're painting because you got to get in all those little grooves, and sometimes it can be challenging. So this process is really freeing for me because it's just like putting paint on a canvas. And it's okay if you see drips. It's like, oh well, that's okay. Just keep going. You're gonna move around that blue. You can bring it down if you want. There's a lot of freedom in this process, so just have fun with it. Typically, when I've put a lot of this on here, I will go all the way across and try to make it as smooth as I can. Not saying it has to be really super smooth, but I tend to just, out of a habit, I tend to do that. Alright, so I'm going to dip it into a little bit more white on the bottom here. This doesn't really need to be that blue, but it is nice to get that white off of there. Alright, you don't really need to do the sides because we're going to go in with thicker paint when we actually paint it. Alright, so now here's where the fun part comes. So I'm going to move my land sand down a little bit. So I'm just going to do a little line here. I'm not putting any paint on it. I'm literally just taking a clean brush and with the water and the paint that's already on here, that's what's creating that line. So there's that. And then, so I moved it down a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit more blue and I'm gonna about here. I'm gonna go all the way across. I am putting on more blue here because it's a little bit darker. Like that. That's about there. And then if you want, you can bring in your you can put in some mountains. Figure out where you want your mountains. Looks like the mountains goes up a little bit here. And I'm not putting anything on here. I'm literally just playing with the water and stuff that's already on here. Alright, so this is about where this white reflection is. So just with the water that's on my brush, I'm just going to take that off. And I'm just going to brush it off. And part of trusting this process is just understanding that this is not a final look. This is not the final process. Like this is the first coat. So after each time I take off, I am wiping off. I mean, you can see when I go and wipe it off, but I am wiping off the blue. If you're ever unsure about a painting or like where things should be in figuring out like that, and you don't really want to draw on anything, this is a really cool process and a really good process that might help that. about where everything is. And again, down here, I'm going to end up putting a different color, so I don't want to make it too blue. But yeah, so that is essentially doing a wash. Now, if you wanted to, you could come in with where you want your, tree. But I would recommend not doing that because we have so much to do in the background before we get there. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm gonna put my, if this is where I want, and in regards to my land, if this is where I want my my bench, I'm actually gonna move my bench down just a little bit. So I'm gonna bring this down even more. And what's nice is by doing this process, I get to look at the whole thing. Oops. I get to look at the whole thing and kind of look at it and make sure that everything is in the right place before I move on. Alright, so I'm just going to come back here and kind of erase this blue again. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a general area. Okay. Yeah, I think that is good. So now I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to kind of finish that, figure out where everything is, get to a stopping point. And while you're doing that, I want to go ahead and show you what we've been up to in Patreon and what we did 2 weeks ago. So earlier this month, we did this painting, which I think came out so pretty. I love the pink in the clouds and just the whole thing. I fell in love with this as soon as I was done. I think it came out great. So if you want to paint this one specifically, it is free on YouTube. It's the last free class that we did 2 weeks ago. So feel free to go over and paint it. Obviously, if you're watching this over on YouTube, then you can just click on my channel and you can scroll through the live classes. If you're watching this live, then it should be the last one that was posted, and you can go paint that, okay? If you are wanting to learn how to paint pet portraits, this month we did a really fun contest in my Patreon. We did a photo contest for painting pets, and Paulette won this one, and this is what we painted. Look how cute he is. I love how this one came out. Just the whole essence of it, and I do give tips on how to paint your own pet portrait. So if you're interested in that, please go over, support the channel by becoming a patron at the $10 tier. You'll also get access to all of my traceables for all my live classes, but you'll also get once a month, you will get a tutorial that is exclusive for my patrons. Sorry, I have like caught and dry mouth right now. But yeah, so that one is specifically for patrons. So if you're interested in painting this guy or learning tips and tricks on how to paint your own pet portrait, maybe one of your pets or a loved one's pet, feel free to join that class. I also have tons of other pet classes in that one. I have a bunch of cats. I have horses. I'm pretty sure I have a frog and a raccoon and some other classes in there. I also have a whole in like endangered species colorful abstract one. I have like we painted an elephant and a lion. Let's see, elephant, lion, giraffe, and a rhino. And then actually next month we are actually adding to that series, and we're doing a bear. So I don't know if bears are endangered, but it was more of just like I'm adding to this, and one of my patrons wanted a bear, so we were doing a bear. But yeah, as a patron you kind of get perks on like helping me choose what we get to paint. So if you want to join the family, feel free. The highest tier, we get to paint weekly. And we've been painting all month for this class. You would have seen a snippet of it last class if you were here. But we painted this eagle. We just finished it. And I love how it came out. This was the first eagle that we did. So speaking of animals, we have other animals. And it came out so majestic. So I loved doing this one. I think the last class is technically going to air next week, just because of how the weeks went. But if you want to join for this class, I would wait until the beginning of the month, because it is the end of, it's close to the end of the month. It's the 22nd. So if you feel like you want to wait until the first of the month, which is when the membership turns over, feel free to do that. You can do that. Otherwise, if you don't really care about the money and you want to just support and have classes, you can join now, start the class, and then you can also stay for next month and have next month's class. We're doing a girl and her horse, like a little girl and her horse. So I'm really excited about that one. But feel free to join us over there on Patreon. There's a lot going on. And I love painting with you guys and seeing all your paintings. Okay, so hopefully that was enough time to get all of your paintings caught up. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out my brushes, and let's go ahead and mix our colors. So I'm going to just clean this part off right here, because this part doesn't need to be here. I always do this for like paints that have dried, because I don't want those dried bits getting in my new nice paint colors that I'm mixing. And that tends to happen a lot if there's dried paint on the palette. We just don't want those mixing. Okay, let's go ahead and look at our colors. Let's look at our paintings. So I know the sky is kind of hard to see, but all I know is that it's light. So it's actually probably even lighter than this and or the same color. But that means it's a lot lighter than what I had, because I had a lot of water mixed in with this color, which made it really light. I also painted it on a white background, which makes it even lighter. So take that into consideration when you are mixing your next color. It's gotta be fairly light, and it's like pretty white in my opinion. And it's not even my opinion. When I'm looking at this, there's almost white behind the tree right here, and then as it kind of goes out, it's very, very, very light. So let's go ahead and mix that color first. We're just going to move our way down the canvas, because it starts off with the sky, and then each layer has another section of the distance, and then coming up to the foreground. So we're gonna do the sky, the mountains, the kind of the city-ish area. We're gonna do the water, and then we're gonna do the sand, the tree, and the bench. If you would like to put your bench in now, or you already have your bench prepped, if you did the traceable, go ahead and paint that in black so that it can dry, so that by the time we get to it, it will be black and dry, and you'll still be able to see it through the paint that we're going to put on the lake. Because if you don't do it in black, by the time we get to it, you're not going to be able to see the traceable. And you know, if you wanted the traceable for that, then you want to be able to use it. So that's just a little tip on using traceables. If you want it to pop through all those layers, paint it in black. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm doing that is to use a acrylic paint marker, because then I can just kind of sketch it in really easily and I don't have to spend too much time on it. But obviously if you don't have one of these, I would just grab any small brush, paint it in black. You can even like color it in black so that it dries by the time we get to it. But that aside, I'm gonna go ahead and grab more white because I ran out. All right, so I have mostly white here, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of this blue in here that I already had. And this is probably going to be the darkest part of the sky. I'm gonna add just the tiniest bit of green in here just to kind of warm it up a little bit so it's not so cold. And what I mean by cold, I'm talking in terms of color. Cold is closer to blue, warms are your yellows and reds. Think of like a fire is warm, and those are reds and oranges, versus ice is blue. Water is usually cold. Okay, so that is pretty good. So I'm just going to leave this here, and let's go ahead and paint this. I'm going to start off with the sky up top by painting the top of my canvas. What's really nice about doing an undercoat, regardless of its color, when you do an undercoat, it's really nice because then when you do light colors like blue, or you're painting white, you can actually see where you've painted. Because when you're painting white on white or a light color on white, it's really hard to see where you've painted. Alright, so I'm doing all my sides just to get that out of the way, because I often forget. Out of sight, out of mind. I will just forget, and then I'll be done with the class and putting it away. I'm like, no, I forgot the bottom. Alright, so I'm going to pull this color in. I'm not using a whole lot of water because I do want this to be on the thicker side. But water tends to dull it down or make it translucent. But because we have that blue behind it, it's not totally, like, it's okay if you can see through it. But water will help it move a little bit if you feel like it's not moving on the canvas very well. My apologies, I just hit the microphone. Alright, so I have pretty much all around this section. I'm going to go ahead and take some white. I'm going to go ahead and just put some white right here in the middle. And it's going to automatically turn off-white because I have blue in my brush. And then what I'm going to do is all of this, I'm just going to mix it up into it. And most of this you're not going to see, so even if you can see some of the, you know, the markings of your brush or whatever the case, like you're not even gonna see half of this, so that is totally okay. The most side that you can see is this side right here. So that is what it is. Okay, so that's that. Yeah, the sky looks good. And I'm actually, if you look at my canvas, you see how it's kind of loose, which I didn't notice until I started painting it. If your canvas is loose like this, I'm gonna wait for this to dry a little bit, but what you're gonna do is you're gonna flip it over, you're gonna get a clean brush, get some water on it, and paint where it is loose. And as that water dries, it's gonna tighten up the canvas. It's not like I don't think it lasts forever, but it does help. It does help. Just make sure it's clean water that you are putting it on. I'll show you. I usually do this before I put any paint on it. I try to make sure I get in the corners. All right, you guys want to see the difference? Isn't that crazy? Yep. So if you're having troubles when you're painting, it's like, oh, you can really tell that it's loose. Flip it over, put some water on it. You know, don't just, you know, drop it on there. But I was just getting some water and just painting. I don't know if you could see what I was doing. You can kind of see in this one. I was just going all the way across, doing it all. You can tell, like, I don't know if you can see, there's a part right, let's see, I can only see it, I don't know if you can see it on the camera. There's a part right here that's kind of poking out. I'm just going to take a little bit of water, kind of put it in the corner. And I'm using a brush. Again, this is the brush that like I use for stippling, so I don't care if it gets ruined or whatever. And eventually that part will tighten up. I'm just going to try to wipe that off. Okay, that's a little quick tip for you. I believe that was actually one of the quick tips I have in there. But I go a little bit more in depth of that tip. So yeah, okay. So there's that. That's the, let's see, we just finished the sky. Okay, let's go ahead and do the mountains. And they're kind of blue. Anything that's in the distance typically will have that atmosphere blue. So we're gonna actually just paint the rest of these in this kind of blue color. I think I'm gonna add a tiny bit of black to it to make it a little bit gray. So I'm going to grab this blue that I have. Just add a little bit of black to it. Perfect. It's actually a really pretty blue. It's very simple. All right, I'm going to rinse out my big brush because I realized I didn't do that. And I'm going to take my filbert brush. I'm going to start over on this side. I'm just going to put in some little mountains, and then if you want you can come on the bottom and add a little bit of white to add that kind of in the distance like kind of a foggy effect. I did switch to a bigger brush. I could cover more ground. At a faster rate. All right. So one thing I do think is that some of these mountains were actually further in the distance, and so they're a little bit lighter. So think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a slightly lighter color. A little bit closer to the sky color. See how that lighter color makes it look like it's further away? I'm going to go ahead and make this one further away. Just this top here. And when you figured out the back ones, you can come back in with your darker color. All right. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and make our lake color. Okay, so this is our sky color. I'm gonna go ahead and move that over here. Still have it over here for reference, but I don't really need it on the palette. Excuse me. And I'm gonna sneeze again. Excuse me. Okay. It's gonna reset. Goodness, the window's open, and so I think the allergies are getting to me right now. Okay, so this side of the water is really close to. Do you see how the mountain and the water look very similar? I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the water first, and then put the city essentially kind of on top of it, or like maybe not city, but there's like a kind of peninsula over here, or whatever you want to put over there. We're gonna do that, I think, after we're done with the water, to kind of bridge the two land and water. So these two colors are very similar. Do you see that in the picture? And then when we come over here, it becomes a lot lighter and a little bit more green, a lot closer to this green right here, this kind of bluish green in the background. Do you see kind of those are like very similar colors? And pay no attention to how red and pink my hand is. Whenever I paint something blue, my camera adjusts and makes everything. So the colors that I'm seeing are a little bit more teal than what you're seeing. So, so just keep that in mind. Just move the camera. Okay. Let's go ahead and create our colors. All right, so we have, let's do our kind of greenish blue first. So I'm mixing white with my greenish blue, a little bit more of my green one versus my blue. So I'm just gonna call it green, blue, and phthalo blue, or dark blue, just so you know which blue I'm talking about, because I have 3 different blues on my on my palette. All right, so as I'm putting this up here, it's very, very close to the sky, and I need it to be a little bit darker. So we're gonna add a little bit more of the green and the phthalo blue, I think, and that will kind of darken it up just a little bit. A little closer. I'm gonna add a little bit more green and maybe even a tiny bit of black, just like ever so slightly, just to make it a little bit darker. Okay, I think that's closer. Yeah, so that's closer. That's perfect. And then what we're gonna do is we are going to create this color again, our mountain color. So I need a little bit of black. I'm gonna grab the rest of this white over here. A little bit of blue, and maybe some phthalo blue, and the medium blue. Looks like we need more black here. I'm gonna put a little bit more phthalo blue, because that will darken it as well as bring a little bit more color back into it. But it's all dependent on how you're mixing, because I might have taken more of one color and less of another, and you might have done the opposite. So in reality, yours might be fine and I'm changing mine, or mine might be fine and you still need to alter yours. Okay, I'm gonna take the rest of this phthalo blue and the rest of my black, which is not that much. There wasn't very much on the palette. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Here we go. I think I started off with too much white, which is fine because I need to do this whole section of this color. Okay. Really hope I don't have to do this one again, but that's okay if I do. I'm going to start with this darker color. And I'm going to put it over here. And the nice thing about doing water like this is that these lines and everything do not have to be the same. Like it can all be like the light, it doesn't have to be perfectly blended. That's kind of part of it, is that it can be you can see the waves in it. You can have light pieces poking up, and I'm going to take a little bit of this light color that we're going to put over here and kind of put it on the bottom section a little bit. And I'm just going to blend it in ever so slightly. And I'm barely touching the canvas and just allowing this to kind of blend in. Now I'm going to take some white and I'm just putting it down the middle. And I'm just going to go back and forth and keep blending it. We are probably going to do another coat of this in terms of the water. So if it's not, you know, what you want it to look like, that's totally okay. We're not done with it. All right, now we're gonna go over to this side. We're gonna have a little bit of this darker edge right here. But then it's gonna go straight into the lighter green that we created. And we're just trying to get base colors right now. So don't worry too much about like the waves part of it. I should have mentioned that earlier. We're just trying to get base colors. So I'm going to bring a little bit of this lightness over here again. And out here in the distance, I'm going to bring it out here a little bit. Alright, so we're going to add this to the whole left side. We're going to add a little bit of that dark kind of poking out. And we're gonna come in with some white. And I'm gonna mix that white with the color that we're using to just make a lighter version of it. And I'm just going to gently add that in this general area. And that's a really good base coat for that. And I'm going to come back in with some white to do this center area. And what I'm gonna do is, this is very, very white in the middle. So I'm just gonna focus on that section. And then I'm gonna take one of my brushes, one of my fan brushes, and I'm going to sparkle the water out with this texture. And don't worry, we will sparkle the water in as well. I'm actually going to get the bigger one because I feel like I need bigger sparkles. And I'll grab some more white. And I'm really gonna try to whiten up the middle of this. And this is really something where you gotta trust the process. And sometimes I'm just barely touching the canvas. All right, so once you got that area, I'm actually gonna bring it this way just a little bit more. Make sure I got the middle section. All right. Oops, sorry. My chair keeps hitting it. So now you can go in and grab the color of the sea, or the color of the, I guess it could be a sea or lake, whatever you're deciding it to be. You can sparkle back into the water. I'm going to go ahead and mix these two watercolors that I used to get kind of like an in-between color. And this will help break it up. All right, so now's the part where you get to add in all of your details for the rest of the water. And you can do this in many different ways. You can do this with a fan brush. You can do this with a liner brush. It's really up to you and how you want to add it. I'm just trying to expand this water section a little bit. The hard part is just gonna make it look, just to get it to make it look like it's not like a line, depending on how you put it in. I'm gonna go ahead and take a liner brush and just start putting in some waves. And when you're doing this, make sure you have a good amount of water so that it comes across smooth and it comes off your brush really easily. This water is fairly choppy, which if you feel like you have a hard time with choppy water, feel free to make it smooth. Like I said, you can change, you know, you can change what it looks like. And then when we get over here, I'm going to end up putting some lighter ones. Same technique, just a different color paint. And you'll see that if anything ever comes out too light or too dark, depending on the color I'm using, I'll just wipe it away with my my finger, and that will kind of blend it in a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and put some lighter ones in here. right, I think that's a good amount of detail on the water. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out my fan brushes and any other brushes that need rinsing out. Alright, now I'm just kind of expanding the sparkles a bit because I felt like there was not enough going out all the way. Alright, I could get lost all day in doing that, so we will move on. Let's go ahead and put in our background, our little little city back there. I'm gonna grab some black. First, I'm going to get this out of the way so I have a little bit of room. Honestly, this is like one of my favorite things of having a flat glass palette, is that it's super easy to clean, super quick to clean, so I can do it in the middle of a class, and it's really nice to do, really nice to have. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and fold this up because this is really wet. And I'm going to put this under here. So I have a nice clean, paper towel for the next part of class. Rinse out all my brushes. Okay. I think this is looking great. This is a great groundwork for what we have coming. So I'm gonna go ahead and make our color for the back city, forest area. So I'm gonna grab some black. I'm gonna grab a little bit of maybe some brown. We haven't gotten the brown out yet, so I'm gonna put some brown up here in the corner, or up at the top, I mean. And I'm gonna mix some black with some brown, and then just a tiny bit of this blue. And the reason I like doing that is because then it kind of absorbs some of the color tones from the rest of the painting, and it tends to fit in a bit more. See how it kind of toned it down? It made it a little bit, I don't know, just closer in feeling, like essence. It's like if you were to put a filter over a picture, it adds that color to everything, not just certain portions of it. So adding that color to the brown will help kind of blend it and make it a part of the painting. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out my filbert. And I'm gonna take this color and I'm just going to actually, I'm gonna grab a different color, or I mean, sorry, a different, I'm gonna grab a different, smaller brush. One that I can have a little bit more control with. I'm also gonna switch out my water. So this is one of the other reasons why I have 2 waters available at all times, is so that I can switch them out if I feel like I need to. So now I have clean water to work with instead of that blue water. You might be asking, Samantha, why are you doing that side when you can't even see it in the picture? I don't know what I'm going to be able to see because my tree might not look exactly like that tree. And yeah, it might look different. So with that said, my tree might not cover all of it. So I'm gonna do this section of it. Man, I just dropped my brush again. I think I've probably dropped my brush like 4 times just this class. I don't know. I have like butterfingers right now. My hands are like all like, they have all this stuff on them, so they're like really slippery right now. Goodness gracious. All right. So I'm gonna do this side. And with this side, I'm gonna do trees. So the tops of this side are gonna be a little bit fuzzy and not straight. So I'm just going to dab, just using a straight or like a round brush, and I'm just going to dab kind of randomly. So I'm having the bottom be straight and then the top be a little bit jagged like trees. And I think I do want a little peninsula. I think it adds a lot of character to what's in the background. So I'm just going to see how I'm holding my brush, and sometimes I press down harder and it kind of creates like a taller tree per se. Or you can hold it to the side and do it that way. It just looks like there's a whole forest back there. And then here, I'm going to come all the way out here. Put a little line there. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. And darker. And if you do ever come to a point where you're like, oh no, I messed it up, just grab your brush and fix it. But the top there is going to be a little bit different anyway, so I'm just going to fix the bottom part. Make sure that this is straight. One of my favorite things to do is when I mess up or feel like I did something that I didn't like, just taking that brush and going across the bottom of something when I want it straight. It's very satisfying. Because not even I get it right 100% of the time. That would be a lot of pressure. But having the flexibility of knowing that if I mess up, I know how to fix it, creates a lot of confidence in just going for it. Alright, I'm going to continue to add trees. I think I'm just going to have a forest back here. And I'm just taking my brush, laying it down. Sometimes it's creating tall trees. Sometimes it's creating short, fat trees. I'm mainly just trying to get rid of the line that I initially drew. Alright, I think that's good. And we might not even see that, but you know what? It's there. We all know it's there. All right, let's go ahead and spend the rest of our time on the tree. We might go a little bit over 2 hours specifically because I don't think we're gonna get the rest done in 20 minutes, but we will see. We're gonna power through. Okay, let's go ahead and make our sand. So sand color can be tricky because what color is sand? It's brown, but is it? It's mostly white, if we're being honest. It's white with a tiny bit of brown, a tiny bit of yellow, and maybe even a bit of a warm color like a red or an orange. So let's go ahead and make our color. Like I said, mostly white. I'm going to take a little bit of this and put it over here for later, and I'm going to add a little bit of brown. If you add brown to it, find out what you get. I'm going to put this to the side because I don't think I need that much. And slowly just add your brown to it and see what you get. You're going to get a very cool color, but just slowly add that brown and see what color you get. This is still pretty light. We're going to add a little bit more brown. It's getting a little bit warmer because this brown specifically is a tad bit warm. And depending on what color you want to go for the sand, you might like this color and just keep it like that. I'm gonna make mine a little bit darker. All right, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and do a first coat of this. Just to put it on the canvas, see where we're at. And don't mind, it looks super pink. It's not that pink. Let's see if I can get something to focus on something that's closer. Let's see if it'll adjust. That's actually the color it is. So what you see right now, this kind of tan and the blues and all of that, that is the color that is actually what I'm working with. Not this pink color. You see how, I don't know why it does that. It automatically adjusts for how blue it is. I apologize. I don't know if I can take it off. I forget until I paint something blue and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. All right, so I'm just gonna paint, kind of block in where I want my little sand cut off to be. Sorry if my head is in the way. I'm just painting the sides and then I'm gonna paint the bottom right now. All right, I'm gonna do another thin coat on just this top part where I'm covering up the blue. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let that dry. I'm gonna rinse out my brush. All right, and let's see. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and let's go ahead and create our green color. And while this dries, we're going to create our green color, and we're going to do probably 3 different colors of green. Okay, I'm going to go refill my water real quick, and we will I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, I filled my water, washed my hands. Let's keep going. The first thing I noticed coming back is that I want this white to go out just a little bit more. So I'm going to just grab some of this and add a little bit more white, just to extend that. All right. Now that that is done, and this is on its way to almost being dry, let's go ahead and do our green. Okay, I'm gonna get out my light green, my super bright green, and we're gonna make 3 different greens. We're gonna make a bright green, a medium green, and a dark green. I wash my hands and I already get stuff on it. Life of an artist at its finest. Oh my goodness. This has been a messy class for me. That's okay. I'm just going to do this because I have a lot of paint on my paper towel and I keep like getting it on me. Okay, let's keep going. I'm gonna make 3 different colors of green. So the first color is going to be the brightest. So it's probably gonna have the most natural green color in it. I'm going to add the tiniest bit of white, and then I'm also going to get out my yellow. We'll also probably be adding brown to this. It's funny, this looks black, but it's actually just a really dark brown. But in comparison to everything else, it looks very much black. All right, so I'm adding yellow and a tad bit of white. And we're gonna go ahead, I like to have this here. Now granted, my colors are a little bit skewed because of my camera. But whenever I'm trying to figure out colors, sometimes they can look fine on the palette, and then when you put them on the canvas, you're like, oh no, that looks awful, or it's not the color I wanted. I like to put the palette right up to next to the canvas, because then I can see the colors next to each other, and that's really helpful. So I know that I need to go a little bit whiter, so I'm going to add white, a little bit more yellow, and I'm going to add a touch of brown to make it a little bit more earthy, a little bit more earthy toned. That is a little bit better. It's hard because I can't look at I can't look at my reference, what you guys are seeing, because it's not the color of tones are not correct. So I'm just looking at I think that looks good. I am looking at this, however, I do feel like this maybe needs to be a little bit brighter. Now that I'm looking at it, I might change this color real fast. Do a quick wash over it to brighten it up. Alright, so I did that just to lighten it up ever so slightly. I just feel that with the colors, with the colors of the green, it'll just be better that is a little bit lighter. Again, just kind of putting on a light wash on this side too. All right, I think that is a little bit better. Okay, so now that that's done, sorry for that little interlude. I think this green is good for the brightest color. So now we're going to move to the medium dark color. I'm going to add my brown and black, as well as some phthalo blue. And mine at this point has dried a bit, so I'm just going to grab some fresh stuff. And this actually, yeah, this works. This is a bit on the darker side, so I'm just going to make this the darker one and add a little bit more blue and brown to it, and we'll just make this the darker one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the two of these and I'm going to mix them together for my middle color. I'm going to take a little bit of the light color, a little bit of the middle color, and mix them together. But I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to this one. All right, perfect. There we go. Now, the first thing I'm going to do before we put in our trunk, we are going to add our bright green to the canvas. So figure out where everything's going to be, and then you're just going to start adding this bright green to the canvas. And it might not make sense right now, but try to just picture where this tree is. And you are adding the other side of it. And I'm pretty heavily looking at the reference for this because I'm looking at where those light parts poke through. All right. Now we're going to take our medium color and we're going to kind of come under on like the underside of some of those. And we're going to add a little bit of the shadow leaf. And right now we're seeing the back end of this greenery. And there's a lot more of this green right here. A lot of green. There's kind of like an open spot over here, so just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through all this. And then we're going to add our dark in the corner. And this is everything that's before the trunk gets put in. Okay? When you're putting in the dark parts of it, try to pay a little bit more attention to where like the shadows of things are, and try not to cover up everything. So we're gonna let that dry before we do any dark stuff. I'm gonna rinse this out, dry it off, and now we get to put in our second coat of our sand. So let's figure out this sand. I do need some dark version of this sand. So thankfully my color is sand. I'm only using those two colors of the brown and the white. Depending on what color of sand you wanted, you could have added loads of other colors as well. So I'm going to keep this as my light color. And I'm going to put in some black and more brown for the shadowing. And again, I'm doing mine a little bit differently than the reference, just as a reminder. All right. To give the sand some texture, I'm going to take this slightly darker color, and I'm just going to pat it on the whole thing. Just to give a general like texture. so that's just like the general texture of the sand. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse off my brush. And I'm gonna take this and a little bit of the white and lighter sand color and put it at the forward area, like the part in the front of the section. So I'm giving it texture, but I'm also kind of blending in some of that sand. Maybe it's a little bit less textured, but also the part in the beginning, the part in the front is going to be a little bit lighter than everything else. Okay, so that's just like a general texture. Let's go ahead and figure out where our trunk is, and then we'll put in our bench. I'm going to take a filbert, and I'm going to grab this black. We're just going to go for it. I'm going to go out, and I think I'm going to go this way. And one is going to go all the way up there. One's gonna go this way, and then this one's gonna come out this direction. I'm just kind of going for it, trying to figure it out as I go. And something about trees, which is really nice, especially for beginners, is they're not straight lines. Very rarely are they straight lines. So they can be all as crooked as you want them to be. Alright, so now that we have that for the main trunk, we can go to a smaller brush to do the rest of the branches, or whatever brush you like doing for branches. I'm going to do one of my round brushes. And so at this point, you're just going to be adding as many branches as you would like. And this is not the main, I don't think this is the main trunk. I think that this is just one of the largest branches from the main trunk. So I think that there are other branches coming off of this one as well. So you can either start at the tip of something and work your way down, or you can start from the base and work your way out. I wouldn't worry about, ooh, what is that? I wouldn't worry about putting every little tiny detail in, because we are going to be putting more greenery over it. I'm gonna go ahead and get out some brown, some more brown. And we're gonna put just ever so slight little bit of highlight on this. On the, like, the underneath parts. So just made a fairly light brown. And you can just add anywhere where you think there might be just a little bit of highlight from the reflection of the sun on the sand. And this will add a little bit of texture to the bottom section. And if your paint isn't totally dry, that's totally fine. It'll blend in with that black, and that's totally fine. That's what mine's doing, and it's coming out pretty good. Maybe some of this is hitting through the trees. Just a little bit of highlight really brings it alive. And if you feel like you put too much in, you can always come back with the black a little later or right now and kind of clean it up. Alright, so while this is still drying, I'm going to take some of this brown and put a little bit of some shadowing down here. Just with one of those browns. And we're kind of trying to mimic some of these, you know, some of these things hanging down. In a way, that's really what we're doing, so. I'm kind of putting this section for this one. This one's kind of coming out, so it's got it there. There's another one over here. And I'm just kind of adding what kind of makes sense to my eye. And then you can always come back and add more or less. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead, let's go ahead and put in our bench. I don't know why I keep forgetting what it's called, our bench. So in very watery black, I'm going to just outline this. I'm going to go straight across. I'm just going to do my best to create a bench that looks inviting. I'm starting with a rectangle and then putting the two sides up. And if you need any rulers, feel free to use them. I'm just going to freehand this. And there's another one that comes down this way. And because this was done in such a light color, it'll be easy to cover up if in the event we have to change something. A watery color. I'm gonna come down a little bit. Alright, so I'm gonna take this black. Now that I have the general outline of this, I'm just gonna go for it and put in this black. I'm going to do another one. I'm just using my small round brush. So there's 3 on the back. So we're going to put in 1 more. And again, if you feel like something like this is too hard for your skill level in terms of the bench, feel free to go grab the traceable, and you can still put it behind your canvas, shine a light through it, and draw in the traceable just for this section of it. And that is, it's not cheating. I always like to say that it's just another tool that we use as artists. Not everybody is skilled at everything in regards to art. Some are better drawers, some are better painters. Some people might use a ruler, and other people use palette knives, and they're all just tools that we use. So don't feel bad if you would like to go grab that. Not saying that you need to, but it is there. That's why it's there. It is there for those who need it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in this little line. Alright, so I feel like I went a little bit too low on that one, so I'm going to grab a clean brush and just clean up that edge. And I can do this because the water in the background is dry. If the background was not dry, I would not be able to do that kind of cleanup technique. Alright, so I've realized as I've been doing this that this line right here, one, we need a brighter brown for this section. So I'm going to grab my I'm going to grab my brown. Here we go. Words. I'm going to grab my brown and do a slightly lighter brown for this section, because the back of it's pretty much black. So I'm just going to make a lighter brown with the same colors, but just black, brown, and maybe a little bit of white. For this bench portion. But what I was saying before is I realized as I was painting this that the location of my left like handle thing, the side arm, should be back here further. And because of perspective, these are going to be different. So this one, while this one goes here, this one on the left side does go down like this, but then it comes up down here to about where the bottom back one is, and then comes out to about here. Which means that this one actually goes up higher than that. All right. We're going to add a little bit of a light tan in the wood grain of the bench. Just to add a little bit of variance in it. And maybe a couple darker spots, like maybe it's in the shadows in a couple spots. All right, and to really fit the bench into the scene, we're gonna need to add our shadows. So we have our shadows on the edge here. We also have our shadow in the back. And then we also need our shadows on the edge here. So we're going to take some of this dark brown, add a little white to it, and we have to figure out how much of a, like where the shadow's going. I think it's going to go to the left here. I'm just taking that color and going from the bottom of it out. And then we have to figure out, let's see, so this is about where it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of shadowing. So I'm now going to start adding my shadow in the kind of bits. Because that's kind of how everything else was added. Alright, I'm going to add a little bit more black. And this is a long class. I apologize for such a long class. But sometimes we don't get to do very long classes on here, on YouTube. I'm kind of glad I kept going. But regardless, I know some of you guys have left, and that's totally fine. I hope you guys come back and finish the class. I'm just going to do a couple little touch-ups here. on like the water side of things. And then also in the sand over here. And any other details like putting in rocks, you can put in rocks in certain areas. Feel free to do that. There's tons of other things that you can do. But just feel free to have fun with it, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Alright, I hope you guys had a fun class today. Again, I'm sorry that I was so long, but yeah, I hope you had fun. I can't wait to see yours, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your evening. Oh, and just for the rest of it, just add a little bit more of darkness to the green, but then you'll be all done. Okay. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you then. Bye, guys.